Well, thank you so much for joining. Would you mind starting off just telling me a little more about yourself and kind of your career and where you're at now?
Sure. Okay. So, as you know, my name is Joshua Rosenbloom. I'm a professor in the Department of Economics at Iowa State University. I've been here for 8 years. I moved to Iowa State to be the chair of the economics department here. So, I'm the I'm the in some sense the supervisor for about 35 faculty in the department, as well as 6 or 7 staff. Before moving to Iowa State, I spent 27 years at the University of Kansas as a faculty member. And during that time, I also had some administrative roles there. And I also spent 2 years on leave from the university serving as a program director at the U.S. National Science Foundation, where I was awarding about $6 million a year in research grants to faculty and researchers. I got my PhD at Stanford University in 1988, and I have an undergraduate degree from Oberlin College in Ohio, which I received in 1981. So that's my background. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, amazing. Really impressive. Do you think you could expand a little more on your experience at Stanford as that is obviously a really renowned, awesome college. Just for anyone kind of like looking there to get their PhD in economics there?
Sure. So I was a PhD student there on in economics. I actually did not major in economics as an undergraduate. I took one economics class in college and I hated it. Um, and I came to economics somewhat late as a result. I don't know if it was just that I had a bad experience with a particular instructor, or if what I think now is that I just wasn't ready for what the subject was about. And um, so I actually studied history as an undergraduate. I went to Stanford to study specifically to study the field of economic history. So I study how the American economy developed over time. Uh, and if so, I guess what I would say about economic history as it relates to economics is that much of economics is concerned with what economists would call equilibrium behavior. So we supply and demand interact, we get an equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity. We say the market is settled there, that's the equilibrium. Economic history is concerned with what disrupts those equilibria, and so what causes them, and then how does the economy respond? And basically, the story of the last 250 years is that the economy has constantly been out of any meaningful equilibrium and changing. And so economic history is, in my view, a really essential piece of understanding economics. And graduate study in economics is um, is pretty technical. It's mathematical. It is very focused. In the first 2 years, you do a lot of coursework, and then after that, you spend your time learning how to become a researcher.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's what getting a PhD in economics involves, and you learn a lot from your fellow graduate students. I was part of a cohort of about 35 students who started in 1983 at Stanford, and I am still in touch with a good bunch of those people who have sort of worked their way through the profession with me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also like a positive of going to college in that field because you kind of get to know other people that kind of have similar intellectual interests.
That
One other question I
absolutely,
had,
yeah,
as you
sure.
said, you didn't start undergrad as an econ major, but you kind of progressed into that. Was there like an experience that like you were like, this is what I want to do, or did it just kind of
Well, I think it was sort of I kind of came around to it in a backwards way. I was, as I said, I studied history, but I also took a lot of math and science classes, and I was very interested in math and science, and I really liked doing both historical research where I was reading things and confronting aspects about the past, trying to understand the past. And I also liked the mathematical and model-based parts of the sciences and mathematics. And what I didn't see at the introductory level in economics was that economics combines those two sets of things. And what I think brought me around was after college, talking to a number of people, including some people who were professional economists, about what they did and learning from them about the ways in which you could combine those two aspects. And so that prompted me to take another look at economics. I took a few more courses. I was very fortunate because after graduating from college, I worked for 2 years um, as a research assistant at another at Harvard University. So I was, and one of the they didn't pay very well, but they one of the benefits was that I could take classes. And so I took a couple of economics classes, and it was the combination of those conversations with people plus taking those classes that persuaded me that I was interested in digging deeper into the subject.
Yeah, really cool that you were able to gain that experience from that. As you kind of mentioned, you liked math and science. Would you say that economics is very like math and science heavy, or is that,
Uh,
could you elaborate on
so
that?
so I'm going to draw a distinction. If you go to college as an undergraduate and you get a bachelor's degree, you have to have a reasonable level of mathematics. So we typically in our program we want students to have taken a year of calculus, and to do some of the other work, you need to have some experience with probability and statistics, and so that's not it's not light. It's not like you can escape the math, but the bulk of undergraduate study in economics is not doesn't lean that heavily on that. There are some places where you need to know it, but a lot of what we teach, we can teach with intuition or with drawing diagrams. There are lots of ways to to convey uh, understanding at that level without a whole lot of math. So um, that's that's sort of where I would start. And I would say if you know you have to invest some effort, but you don't have to be super mathy to be a successful undergraduate. If you
Okay.
want to go on beyond an undergraduate degree, if you want to get in particular, if you want to get a PhD, the profession is very math heavy. And so among the undergraduates who take economics at Iowa State, those who have an interest in going further, we counsel them to invest much more in math beyond what I just described as the minimum level of mathematics. Because to be successful in a PhD program, you really need to have a couple of years of math beyond that first year calculus introduction to be successful as a PhD student.
Okay. That makes sense. It's not super overwhelming, but you're saying once you get into like the PhD level, it's kind of goes up a notch, of course.
Yeah, it does, and and I think, and unfortunately, what I see happening is that um, a lot of students are put off by the math, and so one of the areas of graduate study that has expanded a lot in recent years is public policy. And no knock on public policy. Public policy programs are really great. Um, but a lot of the underlying analysis in public policy programs rests on economic theory, but it does so with less math. And so a lot of students sort of get, say, well, I'm really interested in the policy part, but I just don't want to do the math. and they go to public policy, and it's good until they run into something where they need the math.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Another question I have is what are
sure.
some characteristics and maybe just like individuals or maybe your students that like characteristics that you kind of are like, oh wow, I can see that this is the right major for them, or someone that's like a junior in high school, characteristics that economics and that might be a good combination.
Well, I think that it, there are lots of different aspects of economics, and so I think the real key is an interest in thinking analytically about the world, trying to understand um, human behavior and understand how individual human behavior interacts to produce results that we observe in the world. So things like wage, why do some people earn more than others? Why are prices higher in big cities or why are rents higher in big cities than they are in smaller communities? What explains the difference in prices that someone raising livestock receives relative to what the processing plant gets? Why, what produces those differences in prices all the way along the value chain? If you're interested in questions like that, um, then economics is a great field to be in. If you're not interested in things like that, then it's not such a great field to be in.
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of like questioning. Those are
Yeah,
great questions to ask yourself and consider if those align.
sure.
The final question I have is, as a high schooler, what are some ways you think maybe out of the classroom I can expand my knowledge on economics so then when I come to college as a chosen major,
Sure.
I feel strongly about it and maybe have a more knowledgeable.
Right. Well, so I guess it is, it's certainly the case that, well, first of all, a whole lot of high school students don't even know what economics is. So the fact that you know what it is a huge step in the right direction. Um, there's a lot of information out there. Each of the regional Federal Reserve banks does a lot of public outreach. They provide materials that help to explain the functioning of the economy in plain language. So not they try to talk about it in ways that don't get very technical. So that's certainly one way to learn about economics and economic issues. Um, there is, if you read a newspaper like the Wall Street Journal, there will be a lot of coverage of economic issues. The business sections of national newspapers like the Washington Post or the New York Times have information about economics. There are some really interesting blogs out there. There's a there's a and there's some really interesting economists who are blogging about things that they write about. So Paul Krugman has a column in the New York Times where he writes about economic issues. Great place to read about some things. But Tyler Cowen, who's at George Mason University in the Washington suburbs, is very active, writes a lot about economic issues, and has a big economic education program, which I think they call Marginal Revolution University. They do interviews every year with the economists who win the Nobel Prize in economics. So you can watch those interviews and hear how they think about things. Um, there are some great podcasts that one can listen to. The Freakonomics Radio has a lot of really good analysis of economic issues. Um, on public radio, Marketplace covers economic issues and does a nice job of talking about the economic dimensions of things. And they have They have a podcast too. They have a couple of podcasts. They have a daily podcast called The Indicator, which is about 10 minutes, talks about one subject. It can be anything. It can be inflation. It could be the economics of the American Revolution, which they actually interviewed me about a couple of years ago. There's a wealth of that kind of information that addresses economic topics. Another one that I really enjoy, Steve Levitt, who is the economist that was at the Center of Freakonomics, has a podcast that he calls People I Mostly Admire. And they're interesting conversations. Some of them are with economists, and they're very illuminating about what economists do and how they think about things. And so those are really useful. There are some other very visible economists who you could look for. Emily Oster is an economist at Brown University. She has applied economic analysis to a number of sort of topics that are sort of outside of economics. But I mean, as a mother, for example, she got tired of reading about advice for people for pregnant women that was this and that and the other thing, and she dug into the literature and applied her economic skills to offer new insights about for expectant mothers and then also for parents with small children. So she's written a couple of books that are really fascinating on subjects like that. So I guess that's where I'd start.
Yeah, how cool. I'll definitely check out a lot of those resources, and they sound like all informational.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
thank you so much for your
yeah.
time. It's been a pleasure, and have a great rest of
Right.
your day.
Okay, and I'm going to put in one other plug. The
Of
Iowa State
course.
University Economics Department. If you go to our website, we have a feature which we call Ask an Economist. So if you have a question about economics, you can go to our website. You can put that question in, and you'll get an answer from one of our faculty or graduate students. They get posted on our website.
Oh,
Um,
how cool.
so
I'm
yeah,
so
no,
glad you added
it's a
that
really
in. I'll have to check
fun
that
feature,
out.
and there are a lot of if you go troll around, you'll find there are hundreds of questions that we've already answered. So there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
so
check it out.
much.
Okay, great to talk with you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you.